son's on the table right now.
Yeah, there you go.
We can tilt that so that this goes away.
Maybe.
Something probably. Every 15 minutes, he'd be on a different part of the table.
If we go with that.
It does.
And these are going to start getting older. All right, let's go ahead and open up with a prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem.
Heavenly Father, Yahweh, most holy and true covenant, Elohim, Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov. Give you thanks, Father Yahweh, Yeshua is my name, for allowing us to gather together, Father Yahweh, to make it together, Father Yahweh, to worship you. Heavenly Father, I pray, Father, continually, Father, keep our hearts soft and malleable, Father Yahweh, so we may hear your holy, mighty word, Father Yahweh. And we have deep presence in our heart, Father Yahweh, so we change our evil ways, Father Yahweh, things that is unpleasing unto you, Father Yahweh, so we can hear your messages, Father Yahweh, when you speak to us, Father Yahweh. Because, Father Yahweh, if our hearts are hard, Father Yahweh, our ears are closed, Father Yahweh, our eyes are shut, Father Yahweh, and we cannot see, Father Yahweh, the hidden nuggets, Father Yahweh, that you wrote before us, Father Yahweh. We don't see the paths, Father Yahweh, that you laid before us, Father Yahweh, and we make the wrong decisions, Father Yahweh. Heavenly Father, I give you thanks and praise, Father Yahweh, for being so mindful and kind and merciful to us, Father Yahweh. We pray, Father Yahweh, that it would always be so, Father Yahweh, and we'll be able to receive that, Father Yahweh. So I pray, Father, have patience, Father, Yeshua's mighty name, Father Yahweh. And we ask, Father, to touch our brothers, Father, as they give this class, Father Yahweh, that they speak your mighty words, Father Yahweh, and do your ministry, Father Yahweh, not their ministry, Father Yahweh. We give you thanks and praise in Yeshua's mighty name, Father, for your word going out for the four corners of the world, Father Yahweh, that touch who they may, Father Yahweh. Give thanks and praise again in Yeshua's holy and mighty name. Amen. Amen.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
You gonna try them out?
You got enough battery life?
I have my charger with me.
You on Mikhail's network?
No. How you go? Just go to post.
Yeah. Bear with us a second, brothers and sisters. We're trying to get on Facebook Live. We've been having difficulties since the new year started on their calendar.
Would it go sideways first? So go back and then press go live. Oh, okay, cool. We'll change it itself.
Coincidental that as soon as the new year started, they got this net neutrality thing and all that, all of a sudden we can't get on Facebook Live. They let you set it up and do everything, just won't work. Looks like we're good to go. Let's see how it works.
Put it on. Let me put it on vibrate. Scroll the top and just.
All right. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Yadon Yasharal. My brother Yonatan Yasharal. Shabbat Shalom. And the title of today's Shabbat study is To Fight or Flight. To fight or flight. We understand that for everything there is a time and a season, but we have to also understand as the servants of the Most High, we have a responsibility. We are the battle axe of Yah. With us, he says he will crush nations. We are also supposed to, it also says the saints will take the kingdom. So there's definitely going to be a time to fight, but there's also a time to flee. You know, Bob Marley said it in one of his songs, you know, he who fights and run away lives to fight another day. So we got to understand when it's time to submit and when it's time to allow the Most High to pick up the situation. But either way, in order to know how to deal with a situation, you got to be in tune with the Spirit and allow the Most High to direct your steps. So we're going to open up first in Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes is what? Koheleth? What is it? In Hebrew?
I believe so.
Koheleth. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And we're going to read verses 1 through 8. And Ecclesiastes is right after Proverbs and Psalms.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and
Hold on a second, brother. Saying we're not getting any sound on Facebook. Did you mute the sound when you did that?
I had the earphones plugged in and plugged them out.
How do you get the sound back in? Not getting any sound.
That's pretty much just for the ringtone, but I don't think it's because of.
Yeah, just leave it like that.
Babe, go to the Israelites gathering on the page and see if it have sound. Probably. Hit play on your laptop and see if it's.
No, still not getting sound.
It probably had to do with the headphone. In order so you had to do that again, I have to like restart the phone.
All right, we're gonna restart.
You gotta restart the whole phone?
Yeah. Just hold that top button at the one on the top where on top where like right there. Yeah, just hold that down, and then restart should show up. And then once it comes back up, you should be able to like just copy and paste the title. Like hold your finger over the title or the old one, and just paste it on this one.
I'm just gonna set it live. We'll go back and put the title out.
Okay.
And when you get one.
Is it up yet?
It's coming up. Oh, go ahead. You set it up. Take your time.
All right, brothers and sisters, we trying to get the Facebook Live stream going. We were having issues with the other camera. We're switching to another camera now. Just bear with us a moment and we'll get started. For those that are just joining us again, the title of the study today is To Fight or Flight. And we're opening up in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8. It's interesting, this weather patterns we've been getting all this snow and cold weather in areas that we don't receive snow. And we know the government is messing with things. We understand that. They can't fully control things. So even when they think that they're trying to create something, all these things are working according to the will of the Most High. But one thing that we know we're going to deal with is these prophecies where it talks about the falling away of faith. And it talks about how man's heart will wax colder. And all of that adds to the coldness that's in this world. We're being desensitized with the violence that we see on an everyday basis. We're getting desensitized with the, every day we're seeing some kind of massacre, and our hearts are starting to get cold. And this is all conditioned. And these are things that they have official operations that the government and those that are in power are doing and exercising these things on man. And they have done these things on animals first, on monkeys, to see how they're going to react to certain situations. And they're doing that to us. And we have to keep in mind that, understand that this is what's going on, and don't allow our hearts to get desensitized by this world, and to be made cold by this world, and to become the type of people that don't care about other individuals or try to isolate ourselves. We have to understand that this is part of what Yahshua told us that we were going to have to endure. So this is the process that we have to do. We got to definitely utilize these calling of assemblies and these mikras, convocations and things of that nature to get back into the love, get back into this word, and keep our minds focused, because all of these things that are going on in the world are pure distractions. Football, music, entertainment, a lot of these different things that are secular are used as forms of distraction and desensitizing of the children of Yasharal. And at the end of the day, the rest of the nations are collateral damage. The adversary want to knock us out the game because we're the ones that are going to be the leaders of the world. We're the ones that are going to be ushering Yeshua, Mashiach, Christ, to come into the world. So all these things are focused on us, and everything else is just collateral damage. You think about all the diseases and all the the projects and the tests that they run on us to do things. It trickles down and leaks right back into them, and they're fine. They're fine with that, as long as they can try to destroy the holy seed. Go ahead, Elder.
I'm real glad that you brought that up because I made an opening prayer, to plead with Yahweh, ask Yahweh to keep our hearts valuable and soft. It's not just to hear the word, it's to try and understand the word and be able to obey Yahweh's word. And we know that we're fighting this enemy that's also inside of us. We're fighting the enemy outside of us and the enemy inside of us. So that's the battle in itself. And if our hearts cannot remain valuable and soft, how are we going to receive the loving kindness from the Father, and how are we able to give that loving kindness? If our hearts get hard, desensitized to things, the issues that are going on around this world. I saw stuff on Facebook last week, beloved, that bothered me, and how people can even put it on Facebook, let alone do it. I think it was in the continent of Africa. It was a young African girl, and men around her, and some of like they were, from Iran. The language they were speaking was Iran stuff, but they literally, she didn't understand what was going on, and it hit her in her head, and her body went into shock, and her body just shook like a chicken, with the head cut off, and they just looking at her with no expression on her face because she was crying at first, but all of a sudden when they hit her in the head, the crying just sort of petered out into massive pain and then shock, and she's been in shock, and they didn't care. I'm like, when I saw this done, it shook me to my core. It's like, how can you even do this to somebody and let alone watch it, or any expression in your face? I mean, what kind of hard heart you have to have, what kind of evil mind you have to do this type of thing? What would will you to do this type of thing, And yet, many of our people, when they see this, people in the world, and they say, oh man, that's messed up, and then not take a second thought about it. And then some, will think about this for a week, a month, every time they come up and say, why can't anybody do that kind of stuff? If our hearts get hard, especially about how many atrocities we see on news and so forth, it's like another thing. Is that a problem? I mean, just to compare that with something I saw just for the war-torn area, in Kuwait and different areas that they were warring and so forth. There was a little boy sitting on a fence pole, and there was a cameraman, sitting there from America, taking pictures around, and the boy was so fascinated with the camera in his head that they had a bomb went off like maybe 1,000 yards away behind where the camera was shooting. The little boy didn't flinch an eye, didn't bother, but the cameraman shook like a leaf.
Right.
Freaked out because he's not used to that.
Right.
He's not desensitized to that destruction. But the little boy is so desensitized to it, it didn't bother him, just like nothing. But his attention was to the camera. So the comparison I'm making is that as I pray to the Father, I'm always begging to keep our hearts soft and manner because we can become desensitized to the evil of this world.
Right.
They become desensitized to this world. How can you receive a heart of love? How can you love your neighbor? How can you love your wife, your children, yourself? How can you love your Elohim if you can't love your brother? So I just wanted to just bring that point up because, you really said something that was true that's going on in this world. We need to watch this.
Right, and these are real life situations that they got going on and desensitize us. This has been going on for a long time. They've been doing these things. Like I said, they did these studies on monkeys where they would tie them up and they would put the TVs in front and they would play all these images and stuff to see how it would affect the animals. It made the animals more aggressive. And to the point where we're so aggressive now that, you know, it's leaking into our homes, into our assemblies, into our personal lives. And it is a war going on. It's a war to dominate our mentality, to remove the love from us. So we have to counter that. That's not something that we have to run from. This is something that we have to fight to remain full of love within our heart. Because there's going to be a time for us to fight physically to protect ourselves and protect our families. But that fight isn't with your average person that you walk down in the street. We're fighting with spiritual things and spiritual wickedness in high places. So we have to learn to not project that fight that we're having on the vessels that we're dealing with and understand that we're dealing with spirits. So again, the title of today's Shabbat study is To Fight or Flight. And we're opening up in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And we're just going to read verses 1 through 8.
To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So
there's a time for everything. That doesn't mean that we should always be in a situation where we're ready to war, we're ready to fight with everybody. Now, when you got your enemies coming against you and you have to fight to defend your life, you better be ready to fight. It is what it is. But when you have your family and your loved ones and people that are trying to love you, that's not the time to fight. That's not the time to fight them. That's the time to fight for them, not to fight them. So we have to understand the time when you have things out of order. For example, you can have the horse and the cart. You put the cart before the horse, then it's completely out of order. It's not going to work. But then you put the cart behind the horse, all of a sudden it works perfectly fine. So our lives are going to be reflective of that when we are not in the right, understanding the time and season that we're in, and we're trying to apply the previous things in our lives during the wrong season, and it will cause chaos in our lives. Let's open up and let's move on. We're going to go to Shemot chapter 15, Exodus chapter 15, and we got to understand our Elohim. We got to understand the Most High, so that we can understand how we are supposed to be as a people. People get that twisted when it says God is love, Elohim is love. But first you got to understand the love of the Most High. And love will cause you to kill somebody to defend your family, to defend your assembly, to defend your own temple. You'll do what you have to do. You know, love will cause you to do that. So love don't mean that it's a time for love all the time in the sense of a worldly love where you're just going to let anybody do anything. On some, lack of a better comparison, some Martin Luther King thing where you're just going to stand in the streets and let everybody beat you. But in the movie Selma actually broke that down a little bit. I understood. And my previous approach was, more like Malcolm. Like, why are we not out here fighting? Man, if we'd have been out there fighting, it would have murdered us all. We'd have been done. But it was a time for him to submit, and he sacrificed himself, and some of the people that went out there sacrificed their bodies so that they could be on live TV where people weren't as desensitized. So the world could see this is how they doing black people. And it's so bad that even white people will come next to you and take the beating with you just to say that this is wrong. So it's not always as cut and dry as somebody trying to fight you, you fight. And that's how I was in my youth. Anybody that wanted to fight me, that's the only reaction I knew was to fight back, whether it was verbally, whether it was physically, whether it was mentally, whatever. And that's not always the case. Because what happens when it's your loved ones trying to fight you? You're not going to win that war. So we got to understand how to deal with these things. And at the end of the day, the easiest way and the best way to receive success in that type of fashion is to allow a short period of time for Yah to guide and direct your steps in a situation to show his will, instead of always reacting the way that you have been reacting the way that might have worked in a different scenario or a different situation. You have something, Elder?
Yeah. I like what you said just now because I learned something from, matter of fact, Giannis's father. And he was on that same subject. And he said that one day he was in England and he saw the movie Roots. Alex Haley back in the day, in the 70s, 80s, you know. And they did not know what was happening to, or what happened to the black people that came from Africa. And once they saw the atrocities that happened to them, it was so riled up, so much in pain, confusion, just, in other words, put out. That they beat up the people, they beat up the white people in the schools and, you know, and in the streets and stuff like that, because they couldn't believe that they did that to their people.
Right.
You know, and I also learned that they didn't understand too much about this Bible. They didn't know that they were the children of the Most High. They didn't know that their history was in the book, you know, and how now today they're hungry for the truth because it's not expounded on over there, you know. So just think, if our brothers and sisters show that much dedication, that much love for each other today, how far we would go.
Right.
Instead of falling into the traps, you know, that's laid for us, because our knowledge in our world was taken away from our generation, you know, so we didn't know how to love anymore, you know. So we had this chaotic type love, you know. It's like a vicious love, you know what I mean? Because it's like self-preservation, you know?
Right.
And then if I can extend that to my family, I want to protect my family. You know, what about a different level of love? And if we showed that to our brothers and sisters, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today with each other.
Right.
I'm not saying we won't have problems with the rest of the world, because we understand as they depict our lives to be anything, nothing. You know, that we're not worthy of a good life. You know, so we know they're going to fulfill their agenda. But why don't we fulfill the Most High's agenda? By loving each other and showing the rest of the world that we're not the way they broadcast us. Because on every TV, they always have a melanin individual who can't speak correctly, or a melanin individual who's doing some type of wretched, you know, violence, you know, or hooked on some medicine or some drugs. You know what I mean? So what does that show the rest of the world? That we're animals? You know? So that's not true. And when we do go to the rest of the world, they see a different person. They say, well, what can we believe? What we supposed to believe? So yeah, I believe if we learn this truth and understand Yahweh's love, we can impart that to our brothers and sisters and stop the destruction between each other. Undo the wicked instinct. Undo the destruction that was put upon us, because we changed. We want to follow them, not the world.
Right. That was a good point. Self-preservation is what this system teaches us, to preserve ourselves, and it's, you know, it's about me and mine. F everybody else. And that's kind of how we grew up in the neighborhoods. We were like, look, we don't own nothing in the neighborhood. Even if we own a house, we don't even really own the house. We don't even own what's up under the house. But we were like, this is my block, this is my stuff. And we constantly do that because we didn't have any kind of knowledge of who we were. So we held on to whatever we had, and we went into self-preservation. But at the end of the day, it's a very selfish perspective, and it was a survival tactic. But as you get into this word, we have to learn that the Most High deals with us like how a parent deals with his child as individuals, but he's dealing with the family in a whole. He's dealing with the nation. So we have to step out of that, you know, me, what's for mine, And then it gets a little bit bigger with the people we grab to us and look at things from a nation perspective. And then once you can see things from a nation perspective, then we can flow outside to the other nations. But we got to get ourselves together first. So we're in Exodus, Shemot chapter 15, and we're going to read verses 1 through 21.
Then sang Moshe and the children of Yasharal this song unto Yahweh, and spoke, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has he thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. He is my all, and I will prepare him a habitation. My father's Elohim, and I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name.
All right, so Yahweh is a man of war. Let's look at that word for war there. Exodus 15 and verse 3. What was that Strong's word for war?
That's H4421, Milkama.
All right. Milhama, Milchamah. That's H4421. And that's in the sense of fighting, a battle, the engagement, generally war. That is warfare, battle, fighting, war, warrior. So he's a man of war. He's a man of battles. So the Most High can come down here and destroy anybody or anything, or destroy the world in any time he wants to. But instead, he has servants, and his servants have to take part in those wars. And now war isn't always, and battle isn't always, the front lines where you with a machine gun and fight. War is also when you step out and you wake up in the morning and the adversary, the devil, is telling you, you ain't crap. You ain't worth nothing. Just stay here and just fall down and worship me. That the war started as soon as you opened your eyes. Even before that, the war is going on in your dreams. It's a constant battle. So in understanding that if you are the children of the Most High, you are going to be warriors. But that war has to be in a proper time and place and time and season. So we need to make sure that we understand that, and that we pray for guidance for him to keep us in that right understanding. But we have to understand this is what they won't read in the New Testament. They won't go back to the Old Testament and talk about the characteristic of the full Shem of Yah. He's not all war. He's also love and peace. But there's a time and place, just like we read in Ecclesiastes. And when your life is on the line, it's time for war. Because somebody's going to die. It's time to get up and ready to battle, because he loves us and we love one another. So we have to be prepared for that war as well. Go ahead.
Verse 4. Pharaoh's chariots and his host has he cast into the sea. His chosen captains are drowned also in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank into the bottom as a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, is become glorious in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has dashed in pieces the enemy.
All right. So it's also very metaphoric that these people that are coming against the children of Yasharal are drowned in the water. Drowned. They're destroyed. The Most High will destroy you or anybody that tries to come against the will of the Most High. And in our lives, our previous bodies were at war with the Most High because we were servants of sin. So we had to go through that same process of drowning, of dying, of killing that old person in our immersions. But the difference is we are now going to receive a life through Yah's salvation, Yahshua. So that means we have to turn to the word. That's the only way we're going to receive life back after killing ourselves, receiving the wages of sin, which is death. So this is very symbolic. So without this word, that's what you are. You're the one that's drowning in the sea, that's dying, that's not coming back. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And in the greatness of your excellency, you have overthrown them that rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of your nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You did blow with your hand, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto you, O Yahweh, among the mighty? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You in your mercy has led forth the people which you have redeemed. You have guided them in your strength unto your holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of your arm. They shall be as a stone. Till your people pass over, O Yahweh, till the people pass over which you have purchased. You shall bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahweh, which you have made for you to dwell in the sanctuary, O Yahweh, which your hands have established.
All right, so he talks about in verse 16, the people that you have purchased. So just how wicked is it that if you are purchased and you are reconciled, you are adopted unto somebody that has a sovereign, that is a sovereign individual over you, and then you decide, you agree to become in covenant with this person, and then you decide, I'm just going to take off and go to somebody else that did not purchase you, that did not get in covenant with you, did not agree with you. You didn't make that agreement with them. That's wicked. If we look at it in just an earthly sense, you know, we had a situation earlier this week. One of the sisters, her friend purchased a car from somebody. The man then took the car and put a title loan on the car that he sold the individual, and then tried to take the car back. That's the same process. That's how the adversary of the devil works. And this is what we are doing when we say, yes, Yah, I accept you. I accept Yahshua, accept your word. I want to do this. And then we turn back to that old way and go away from where we belong. We understand in a carnal sense how wicked that is. And this is why the Most High will show us these things in our lives so that we can understand the concept of what we're doing. So once we have an understanding of what we're doing to somebody who's never done any wrong to us, then we have a better opportunity to try to figure out and pray and ask for them to deliver to us, the Most High to deliver us the ability to overcome that fall. Go ahead.
Verse 18, Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots, with Yahweh, with his horsemen into the sea, and Yahweh brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Yasharal went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing you to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has he thrown into the sea.
All right, so this was a song, and this is how our songs are supposed to be. This is the subject matter of our songs, is to glorify the Most High and to remind us and remind our youth of the things that we went through. The other nations, they can sing whatever they want to sing. They can sing to their gods. That's what they do all the time with their songs and their music videos and their signs that they put up to glorify their gods. But this is what we're supposed to do. We're his servants. We had priests that was their job, was to play instruments, and we had priests, their job was to sing. So in understanding, we can't forget that Yahweh is a man of war. So don't be shocked when you find yourself in battles, in wars, especially when you come into the word. Now you are prime suspect number one. That's like you are a civilian, then you put on a military outfit with fatigues and weapons and have a crew with you of people and walk into war-torn areas. Be prepared for a fight. It's coming, because that's what you did when you took your immersion, when you decided to make your covenant with the Most High, say, I'm no longer to be a servant of sin. You jumped into war to be ready. But just because you dressed in a uniform with your AR or your M16 don't mean it's time to shoot everybody you see. We have to understand the difference in the time and be able to be malleable enough for the Most High to move us and use us how we need to be used in the proper time. Let's go to Devarim chapter 20, Deuteronomy chapter 20. Another thing in war is the captain will send out certain people. When they blow the trumpets, the eastern tribe goes first. Judah goes first. Then they blow it again, and then the southern tribes go first, and so forth and so on. And there's order. There's order of things. So, again, just because you are in the fight doesn't mean it's always your time to fight. You have other people that are on your side that are fighting for you. We have people and spirits that are around us, and angels and messengers that fight for us. And here we are, they're trying to fight for us and defend us. It's just like the husband and a wife. The husband tells his wife, go back here with the kids and stay right here and hold this rifle. I'm going to fend off these people right here. And he's handling his business, and he's more than capable. He's an expert marksman, got all the material, all the proper tools and everything, and he's just knocking them down one by one. And here you come running out, the wife with a spear. Now she gets shot down. You're like, wait a minute. I told you to stay back here. Stay with the girls. What are you running up in here with the fight for? That's going to be a problem. And that's what we do when we try to stick ourselves in the fight all the time. When it's a spiritual thing going on, you can't fight something spiritual with something carnal. You ain't going to punch a spirit. It ain't going to work. So we have to also learn that Yahweh fights for us. So we have to know how to be able to trust him and sit back and sometimes be in a situation that looks like we're going to be in danger and put that life preservation thing to the side sometimes and allow Yah's will to be done. Devarim, chapter 20, and we're going to start this at verse 1.
When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and a people more than you, be not afraid of them, for Yahweh your Elohim is with you, which brought you up out of the land of Mizraim. And it shall be, when you are come near unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people.
All right, so it says, do not be afraid of them. When you see the system that we're fighting against here in this captivity that we're in, it's greater and mightier than us, more weapons, more people. They have even recruited some of our own people to fight against us. We can't be afraid of that. We can't be afraid of them. We can't be afraid to be in the position that we need to be in. Because, again, Yahweh is with us. We have to trust him. His love is going to cover us in certain situations. But if we have fear, that comes with torment. There is no fear in perfect love because of that torment, because we'll be afraid to do or stand up and be in a situation that the Most High is putting us in because of fear. So that ain't going to happen overnight. We didn't grow up in the love of the Most High like that. We're just learning that. So that's going to take time. But we have to acknowledge that to ourselves and realize that, okay, I got to get rid of this fear. I have behind me and in front of me the greatest force that ever existed. So what am I afraid of? Go ahead, brother.
Verse 3. And shall say unto them, Hear, O Yasharal, you approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts be faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be you terrified because of them. For Yahweh your Elohim is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you.
So Yahweh your Elohim is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. But what if you the enemy? You the enemy if you transgressing these laws. You are enemy to your own temple. You are enemy to your own nation when you are transgressing these laws because you are not serving a capacity. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And the officer shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that has built a new house, and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in battle, and another man dedicate it. And what man is he that has planted a vineyard, and has not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man eat of it. And what man is there that has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart faint, as well as his heart.
All right. So, when it's time to go to war, it's not fair for everybody to go into the battle. There's people that are in certain situations where, they're not prepared. They have other responsibilities. Remember, Yah fights for us, but we are the servants, so we have to physically be there. So the priest will come out and he will make that disclaimer to everybody that's in a certain situation that, in case you have to give up your life, how is this going to impact other people or your situation? And he will give that opportunity to say, there's going to be another fight. There's going to be another battle. Again, he who endures to the end is fit for the kingdom. So this is going to be something that's going to be constantly going on. But then after you cut out those people that are just, they're ready to fight, but it's just not a right situation for them, then you get down to the person that is fearful and faint-hearted. That's a time for you to fight. If you are in the war or you are in the battle, as valiant as you want to be, if you're fearful and doubtful and lack faith, go home. That's a time for you to fight. That's not a time for you to fight because you're going to get yourself killed and you're going to get the person next to you killed. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody going to war is just like, oh, I'm just not scared. No. That's not what that means. That means if you're going to be paralyzed by that fear, if you are lacking your faith and trust in the Most High, if you're not fully behind the war that you're about to fight, go home. And this is how it is in this spirituality. If you're going to come and say that you want to be a servant of the Most High, especially priests, you a servant of the Most High and you want to approach this thing, but you scared of losing your friends, scared of losing your family. You're scared of losing your life. What did Yahshua say about those in their lives and the fear to lose your life? What did he say?
Those who love mother or father more than me is not worthy of me. And if you love your own life more than me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of the above. If you love your family or anything else in this world, which goes with the previous class that we had, more than him, you're not worthy of him. And if you love your own life more than doing the right thing, which is loving Yahshua, which is his word, you're not worthy of him. But the beautiful thing is he knows that we are humans. We are carnal creatures that our body is, our flesh is designed to be self-preservation. So he died for us so that we could see ourselves, and he sent servants to tell us about ourselves that love us so that we can say, okay, look, I realize I'm in this state. I don't need to be like this. Let me do something about it. Let me pray for strength. Let me work on my faith. Let me get some works up under my belt so that, my works, when they burn up, at least I'll be saved by it. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 9. And it shall be, when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people.
So that's when your leadership comes. When all the people that ain't for the fight, when all the battle is ready to go off, now, once all the cowards are gone, once all the people that are in just a bad situation, where it's too much risk for them to go out there and removed, now the captains are picked. Now the people are picked. So these are people that got to be ready to fight. So what happens when you picking before all of this and you picking the wrong people to be your leaders and your captains, and these are fearful people? That fear and that doubt is going to spread. So your captain or your leader or whoever, if he's afraid, if he's self-preservation more than he is to protect his nation, it's going to be a problem. That's why we have to follow this process by rooting out the people that are not fit to lead. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And when you come near unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And it shall be, if it make you answer of peace and open unto you, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto you, and they shall serve you.
Bondmen, bond servants.
Question on that one.
Go ahead, elder.
The reason I'm just bringing up a question on that one, because this in verse 10 looks like it matches and goes along with verse 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going to go on to 17, but Yahweh is going to utterly destroy, and he named them,
Mm-hmm.
Hittite, Amorite, the Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, because they are the ones that help turn our people away from him
Mm-hmm.
with their abominations.
Mm-hmm.
When that verse comes up, and right here it says, when they draw nigh to your city to fight against it, and proclaim peace on that. I don't believe it's for that nation that we became that nation.
No, we were told to kill off the whole nation. So,
You know,
yeah.
so I wanted to bring that point up, you know.
Mhm.
Let's see, yeah, because, you know, and when I saw the Hittite and so forth, I remember that, you know, if somebody looks like that and say the Hittites, the only Hittite that I remember at the time was the one that served, you know, Dawid. And he had done that foul thing with Hittite's wife, you know what I mean, Bathsheba and so forth.
You're right.
Even though that Hittite was, I would say, a righteous brother, you know, in the way that he conducted himself, you know, toward his men and toward his nation, you know, at the time, because he served Dawid. You're not supposed to really put anybody in the kingdom, but I would say that brother was pretty righteous on how he handled himself, you know. But still, under this level of commandment right here from Yah, you know, I guess it was, he had to die, he had to go, even though he went foul, you know what I mean? I think he had to go, but I think that brother, if any Hittite, like the name he talked about in the scripture, then he would probably be in the kingdom, because how righteous he was, you know, toward him. But, if that's a possibility. But I just wanted to make a point there that all people are evil, except this right here, it just stands out to me.
Right.
That's what I want to make a point on that.
Right. This is the law of warfare here that we're reading. So this is they're getting ready to fight Canaan. So yeah, it applies to Canaan, but this applies to all wars. Yeah. So it's not specifically just talking about those 7 nations of Canaan, because we know what the commandment was for those. Kill everything. Yeah, everything that has breath. The animal, we don't even want your animals. Kill everything. But at the same time, because we were fearful and doubting, he said, I'm not going to let you kill off everything. I'm going to leave some, and they're going to be a snare to you. So they'll leave some. But some of those that are righteous, he takes a remnant of everything. Right. If he wanted to kill off the whole people, he'd have killed it off. Now Esau, he killed them all off. Yep. Period. Yep. That's the only nation in here. He said point blank, I'm killing everything. None of you going to be alive. Obadiah goes into that. Period. That's him. That doesn't mean for us to go kill or try to figure out who he is. He looked like us. He's our twin brother. So how you going to know? You might mess around and kill Israel. That's right. You don't know that. And we all been at a point in our lives where we had hatred for our own brothers. So that's the spirit of Esau. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And when Yahweh your Elohim has delivered it into your hands, you shall smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shall you take unto yourself, and you shall eat the spoil of your enemies, which Yahweh your Elohim has given you. Thus shall you do unto all the cities which are very far off from you, which are not of the cities of these nations. But of the cities of these people, which Yahweh your Elohim does give you for an inheritance, you shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and the Hivites and the Jebusites, as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you.
It didn't say Esau. It didn't say go kill Esau. Matter of fact, the commandment was not to hate Esau. Yahweh will take care of them in his duly time. And I think there's a reason why he said not to kill off Esau. That's our twin brother. So you want to mess around and kill the wrong person. So he said, he told you, and he said, namely these people. And these are the people you're not supposed to make covenants with. You can't marry these people because these are the people you're supposed to kill off utterly. So you can't make covenant with these people. It didn't include the Gentiles from other places, because other Goyim, he said, if you go to war with them and you see a woman you favor, you can take her to be your wife. Shave her head and pare her nails, which means let her nails grow out. And when her hair grows out and she got a new covering, a new glory for her new husband, then you can take her to be your wife. But then people take that a whole thing about, interracial marriage and all this stuff, and it's just completely taken out of context.
I could remember if they said that about Esau's wife. I could remember if they allowed her to be in that line. If you killed Esau's brothers, sisters dead, what about the women? I don't ever see anything like that. So I guess Yahweh don't handle that.
Verse 18. that they teach you not to do after all their abominations which they have done unto their gods, so should you sin not against Yahweh your Elohim. When you shall besiege a city a long time and making war against it to take it, that you shall not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them. For you may eat of them, and you shall not cut them down, for the tree of the field is a man's life to employ them in the siege.
And what's interesting is that's how the first Chinese kingdom fell. It fell because when they were dominating in China, they were chopping down all the trees to build these massive structures that are still here to this day. Those huge buildings, and they ran out of food. They couldn't feed the soldiers. So they died. The kingdom fell, and a new Chinese kingdom came in. So that wouldn't happen to us if we keep the commandments, because we have a righteous Elohim that's giving us things that I would never even think of. I'm thinking food gonna always be for us. We always gonna have food, but we don't know if it's gonna rain tomorrow or if crops gonna grow. Go ahead.
Verse 20. Only the trees which you know that they be not trees for meat, you shall destroy and cut them down, and you shall build bulwarks against the city that makes war with you until it be subdued.
All right, let's go to Luke chapter 1. Luke chapter 1. And we're going to read verses 67 through 80. Lucas chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 67 through 80. You know, with me and in my life, one thing I could always do was fight. I could always fight. That was one gift that I had. But at the end of the day, my problem was I didn't know how not to fight. That's the problem. That's a real problem all the way into my adulthood. So, these are things that many of us, and it's not just unique to me, our people in the nation, it says in Judah, the sword will never depart from your house. So you got warriors. We grew up fighting. Whatever, even when you go, if you might have grew up in a different type of neighborhood, you didn't grow up in the hood. Maybe you grew up in a white neighborhood. You fighting in the white neighborhood because the white people don't like you. Then you grew up in a black neighborhood. You fighting your brothers and sisters. So we can fight. That's one thing we can do. But the problem is we got to learn how not to fight. And we got to learn when to fight. And we got to learn who we're not supposed to fight. We're not supposed to be fighting the people that are on our team, the people that are trying to help us. What it looked like, what is it, Georgia and Alabama or whatever? They playing each other and the quarterback run out there from Georgia to pass the ball, and his offensive lineman just tackle him. Rawr! It's retarded. Y'all on the same team. How you going to win a game like that? You trying to beat the people that's trying to knock your head off and your own team trying to tackle you? Well, that's what we do to ourselves as a nation, but we were set up like that because how we were set up is they all got the same jerseys on. What the adversary did is he switched us around and put different jerseys on us, but we all the same people. But we got different jerseys on, so we thinking this is our enemy. They convincing us every time we turn on the TV that our enemy is the one that's looking like us or the one that's wearing our outfit. And that causes us to be counterproductive. Lucas chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 67 through 80.
And his father... Luke chapter 1, verse 67. And his father Zacharias was filled with the Ruach Kodesh and prophesied, saying...
And this is Yohanan, this is his father.
Blessed be Yahweh Elohim of Yasharal, for he has visited and redeemed his people, and has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant Dawid.
All right, so he was filled with the Holy Spirit. So when you filled with the Holy Spirit, what do?
Prophesy.
And you speak what?
Truth.
The truth. So that's what the Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit is the spirit of truth. It's the comforter. So when you under the Holy Spirit, you're going to speak truth. It doesn't say anywhere in this situation where somebody had the Holy Spirit, they ran, sprinting down an altar or whatever, doing flips and pulling a wig off or whatever. That's a different spirit.
Verse 70. As he spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he swore to our father Abraham, that he would grant unto us, that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. And you, child, shall be called the prophet of the highest, for you shall go before the face of Yahweh to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation unto his people by the remission of their sins, through the tender mercy of our Elohim, whereby the day spring from on high has visited us.
All right. So, and you, child, shall be called the prophet of the highest, for you shall go before the face of the Adonai to prepare his ways. This is talking about the Yohanan, how he was going to go before him and prepare for Yahshua to come in here and usher this war that we are having against this fleshliness that we have. And the prophecy is that from the same thing, from the early time, from the holy prophets, that we are going to be saved. And now you tie that with where it says Yahweh is a man of war, and go to Deuteronomy 20 where it says Yahweh fights for Israel. If Yahweh fights for Yasharal, how are we going to lose? We can't lose that way. So we have to understand before we get into fights that we already prophesied to win in the end. So we got to choose which fights and which battles we're going to go up against.
Verse 80, and the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, and was in the deserts till the day of his showing unto Yasharal.
All right. Let's go to Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 10. And we're going to read verses 1 through 10. So it says, again, that Yahweh will fight for Yasharal. Is he going to fight for you all the time? Not necessarily. So we have to make sure that we keep ourselves in a position where that if we fight, we can be fighting where Yahweh is fighting for us. And Numbers by Midbar is going to give us some clues into how we can know that Yahweh is going to fight for us. And one thing the Most High is not going to do is he's not going to justify wickedness. He's not going to fight for you to do wickedness when you're supposed to be the ambassador to the Most High.
Numbers, Bamidbar, chapter 10 and verse 1. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, make you 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece shall you make them, that you may use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps. And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to you at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And if they blow but with 1 trumpet, then the princes, which are heads of the thousands of Yasharal, shall gather themselves unto you. When you blow an alarm, then the camps that lie on the east parts shall go forward. When you blow an alarm the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, you shall blow, but you shall not sound an alarm.
All right, so the shofar, again, and the trumpets, when they are blown, they are signals for us to tell us to do certain things and to begin certain instructions. And it becomes a problem when we are not following the instructions. And the Most High has these things set up a certain way. The whole book is set up of instructions. Do this when you do that. Do not do this when this happens. He's training us to be in the kingdom where we won't have death. So we'll be able to follow instructions. So it becomes a problem if you don't understand the instructions. When they blow the trumpet certain ways, that means the whole assembly is supposed to gather. But if he blows an alarm, the first time, the camps on the east are supposed to go out to fight. And if he blows it the second time, the camps on the south. So again, there's a time for peace and there's a time for war. We have to know when is it time to fight and when is it time to just assemble. But again, because we've been so desensitized and we have been brought up in this system of confusion, we think everything is a fight. Go ahead.
Verse 8. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generations. And if you go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresses you, then you shall blow an alarm with the trumpets, and you shall be remembered before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall be saved from your enemies.
All right. So if you go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresses you, then Yahweh, once the trumpets are blown, he will save you from your enemies because you are in your land. But if Yahweh removes you out of your land and puts you in captivity and you are being oppressed, that isn't the time that Yah is going to always fight for you. And he's definitely not going to always fight for you if you, in your land of oppression, join the army of the oppressors and go into somebody else's land who is not oppressing you and try to fight them and expect Yahweh to fight for you. That's not according to these scriptures. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim.
All right, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 51. Jeremiah chapter 51. And we're going to read verses 19 through 64. Jeremiah chapter 51, 19 through 64. And we opened up the class, discussing the fact that we are his battle axe. We Yah's battle axe. So that means we have to be the type of tool that could be effective in battle. And we can't be effective in battle if we're a tarnished weapon. Jeremiah chapter 51. And we're going to read verses 19 through 64. Jeremiah chapter 51, 19 through 64. Glad the broadcast stopped again on Facebook. So it's definitely not the internet here. It's not the phone. It's something with this account.
Also, it says was live instead of is live.
It's not live anymore. It stopped.
Phone's getting too hot. Some apps are gonna close to help it cool down.
That's interesting. That's the same phone we streamed on before, right?
It just opened up all the stuff I had open last time.
When you restarted it, it did that?
Yeah, after I restarted, everything just came back open.
Yahweh give us some encouragement.
Go ahead, Elder.
I was just thinking about the scripture that comes up in Isaiah, and it's how Yahweh gives in Isaiah chapter 49, verse 25, he says, but thus saith Yahweh, even the captains of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with you, and I will save thy children. And he talks about, that how he's going to feed them, and I will feed them that oppress you with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken, and their own blood, with their own blood, as is sweet wine. And all flesh shall know I, Yahweh, and the Savior, and Redeemer of the mighty one of Jacob. And basically Yahweh, tries to let us know that he is in our corner, and he is our Redeemer, he is our Creator, he is the one who made a covenant with us, and all we have to do is do right by him, because he wants to give the inheritance to his people. He wants to be the Savior of his people. He wants to show you that he is your Elohim, you know what I mean? So he's letting everybody know, his children know that, no, I'm going to take care of you. The ones that come against you, I will contend with them, And it goes along with that, we can just add when, Yahweh sent the angels down and killed 186,000 men in one night. You know what I mean? To take care of his people. You know what I mean? He confounds them, because if we follow Yah and do his mighty will, we give him glory. We become glorious before Yahweh because we give him that glory.
Right.
So why wouldn't he take care of his children? Why wouldn't his heart be toward his children? Why wouldn't he draw nigh unto his children when his children is truly trying to draw nigh unto him? So that's massive encouragement to let us know that Yahweh loves us that much that all we have to do is be obedient to him and show our hearts unto him, and he will take care of us.
Right.
Jeremiah chapter 51, starting at verse 19. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things. And Yasharal is the rod of his inheritance. Yahweh of hosts is his name. You are my battle axe and weapons of war, for with you will I break in pieces the nations, and with you will I destroy kingdoms. And with you will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with you will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. With you also will I break in pieces man and woman, and with you will I break in pieces old and young, and with you will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with you the shepherd and his flock, and with you will I break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen, and with you will I break in pieces captains and rulers.
All right, so there's so many layers to the scripture. So on a surface level, it looks like we're his battle axe. So we're gonna go out there and we're gonna fight everybody. We're gonna fight these nations, and we're just gonna destroy people because Yah's with us, and we're just gonna break people apart and destroy. Well, in some sense, that's true. But this is also talking about how the servant of Yah is going to go out and is going to help people destroy that old vessel that they have, that old servant of sin, and help that person be destroyed so that they can be reborn, a new person, part of the spiritual body, the body of Christ. So it's not all about getting out there and fighting people all the time. This is a time for war. There's a time for peace. There's a time for love. There's a time for hate. And now we the time for hating that old man. We got to hate that person. But the problem is we love him. We love that old person because that old person worked for us in a carnal world. It helped us get what we liked. It helped us get the things that we wanted. It helped us self-preservation. But we have to eventually get to the point where we're going to trust the will of the Most High and have faith in his commandments, that although my mind might tell me, breaking this commandment is going to benefit me in some kind of way, we have to trust that that's not going to help. That's not going to help us, especially if it's being done for an occasion of flesh. We got to learn to be part of that process, and part of that process of breaking in pieces the nations and kingdoms and all that was we were part of some of these kingdoms when we acted the way that these other nations acted. So this word will be instrumental in that, and we have to make sure our weapon is sharp enough and tried and true, so that we can help people, especially our nation, destroy that old man and become part of that new spiritual temple and these fleshly building blocks that we're putting in to build this new temple.
Verse 24. And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done to Zion in your sight, says Yahweh. Behold, I am against you, O destroying mountain, says Yahweh, which destroy all the earth. And I will stretch out my hand upon you and roll you down from the rocks, and will make you a burnt mountain. And they shall not take of you a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but you shall be desolate forever, says Yahweh. Set you up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. Appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion.
Let's look at these nations here. Let's look at kingdoms of Ararat. Ararat is like the mountains of Ararat is where Noah's ark landed. So let's look at that. What was that first one? Ararat is what?
780.
H780. It's always interesting to look at who they're talking about here. And you can't always look at who they're talking about and say, well, this is this portion of land. These people that are in the land right now, that's who they're talking about. It's not always that way because people move and things move around. So Ararat is Armenia. H780. Armenia. All right. And then what was the next one?
Mini.
What's that one?
4508.
H4508 Mini. I have no clue who that is. 4508?
Yep. Maluak.
And that's
Nope.
an Armenian province. So this is, again, talking about a city in Armenia. So Ararat and Mini. So Mini would be in Ararat, in Armenia. It's a place in Armenia. What's the next one?
Ashkenaz.
Which we know who that is. Ashkenazi Jews. That's like the Germanic tribes, right? Poland and all those little areas where we had the Jewish people in the Holocaust. What was that, Strong's?
813.
H813. And that's also on the Table of Nations. That's the seed of Japheth. Ashkenaz. A Japhethite, also his descendants. And that is that German area right there. Germany and that section right there, which is interesting that Trump, which his name used to be Drumpf before his family changed it, the so-called Queen of England and all these people that are calling themselves British, which means they're saying Brit, which is covenant man. Ish is man. They trying to say they the covenant man. They trying to say they us. They ain't in no covenant with the Most High. Nope. Those people aren't even from that area. The original British people were black people. Yep. You can see that. You can go into history and see that. Yes, even the Britons know that. Yep. Those people are German. Yep. All these people, Jewish people, they all come from that German, Poland, Ukraine, all that little area, Russia, all the area. And if you ask a Jewish person right now, a white European Jewish person, where are your people from? They're not going to tell you Israel. Nope. They'll tell you I'm an Israeli, but nah, I'm Jewish. But they're going to tell you Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Russia. Those are the lands they're going to tell you they from.
Verse 29. And the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of Yahweh shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. And the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holds. Their might has failed. They have become as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken.
Let's actually stop right there. Let's go into Maccabees. We're going to go into the Apocrypha. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. 1 Maccabees chapter 1. And if you do not have access to any of the Sefer writings or the apocryphal writings, you can, again, always go to IsraeliteGathering.com. We have access to all of those things. Those books, you can either download it. You said what?
Is it on any of the phones?
Yeah. Matter of fact, can you get the Apocrypha for Jonathan so he can borrow it?
Toda.
So we're going to 1 Maccabees. And Maccabee means hammer in Hebrew, because this was the style of fighting that they would do. They would come in there with a hammer and just mash you. First Maccabees, chapter 1, and we're gonna go all the way through. We're gonna do First Maccabees, chapter 1. We're gonna do chapter 2, and then we're gonna go to chapter 4. And if you haven't read this, especially Maccabees, you can see clearly why they pulled this out of the book. They just like, no, we got it. I'm surprised it's still available.
Really?
You know, I'm thinking like anything they're gonna burn up these chapters, because it's telling exactly what they did to us, exactly why we thinking the Sabbath is on Sunday. Right. It's telling you exactly why we looking up at a white Jesus hanging on the cross, and it's telling you how they went in there and painted their own pictures in our books when we didn't have pictures. We didn't put pictures in our books. We didn't do graven images and things of that nature. We would have had to do graven images to put a picture in a book. And it tells you about all that. And then on top of that, it gives you names of historical people that you can look up in encyclopedia, people you were taught about in school growing up. So it gives you timelines of that. It wasn't that long ago that this happened. It goes into telling you showing you the names of the people that were in Egypt and how Egypt turned white. It goes in and tells you all these different things. 1 Maccabees chapter 1. And we're going to start that at verse 1.
And it happened that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece.
All right, so where's Kittim?
That's like Greece, Rome.
Right, that whole little area. So it's telling you where this person came from. And this person here wasn't actually from that area. That's what's so funny about it. He was reigning over that area, but that's not where he's from. Because these Greeks, the original Greeks and all these people, you go back, you can see the statues. These were black people. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up.
And if you want to get more about the Philip of the Macedonian and Alexander the so-called great and all that, you can go in the book of Yashar. It goes a lot into that history. And Flavius Josephus goes a lot into that and talks about how some of these nations got this information and how it passed from Sumeria with Abram, and how Abram went into Mizraim, into Egypt, and taught the Egyptians arithmetic and astrology or astronomy or whatever, and taught them the stars, and how they went in turn taught Ptolemy of the Greeks, and how that's how they got it. And all of a sudden, what was his name? What was the other guy? Not Africa. The person they credit for all Aristotle or whatever. Not him. It was another one.
Titus.
It was the father. That's the Greek person.
Socrates.
Not Socrates. It was another one.
Plato.
I forgot. It was another one that they dubbed. Not him. It was one of those Greek people that they say, oh, you were the one that found all this stuff. And he's got books and stuff of Pythagorean theory and all that type of stuff. I was just reading his name the other day. But anyways, that guy, he got all that from Egypt, which got all that from Samaria, from Babylon. They had that. Chaldea had that information first. And this is why when you go in Book of Enoch, and where did they get that from? They got that from Enoch, because that's where Enoch came from. So this is why we had this calendar system. We had all this knowledge way before the Greeks were even close to being in power. But you let the Greeks write history, they invented everything. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
All right, so this is how you got white people in all these different places, white slave owners in all these different places, because when the son of Philip, a Macedonian, they call it Alexander the Great, he died at a young age in his 30s, and all his homeboys, he parted all the land to them and all the different realms that they controlled, and they were over that area. And when they got over that area, they whitewashed it. They killed off the natives of the land, which were melanin people, and they made it into their land and they bust in slaves and things of that nature, and generation after generation, till it became like a white place. Go ahead.
So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are around about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well.
All right. And this would be called a coon. This is what they did. They said, okay, for monetary gain, they said, let's go be like the heathens so that we can make money, so we can get money off of them, so I can be raised above my brother. Because the brothers that were keeping the laws, you weren't getting all that because we were under punishment for the transgression of the law. So to make your life easier carnally, let's be like them. Let's not circumcise ourselves. Let's cut off our hair, shave our face. It's the same thing they're asking us to do at these corporations. Let's be like them, act like them, talk like them, change our names from Hebrew names to Greek names so we can blend in. Because at this time, Greece and Rome, there was still a little bit of tint going on there. It wasn't completely whitewashed yet. So some of us could blend in a little bit. So this is what happened back then, and it's the same thing that happens now, where we're saying, nah, I don't want to come closer to my culture. It's hard for me to be in my culture because my culture is not in control. Let me be like the nations around me. Go ahead.
Verse 14. Verse 13. So then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
So they ran to master, we don't want to keep the commandments. Give us permission to transgress these commandments. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
The Olympics, that's where that came from. Gymnasium, all that stuff came from the Greeks. But see, now it's a little different, where we, are showing off our athletic ability. I almost said a derogatory term. The homosexuals, I was about to say the other word. The homosexuals would have the men dressed butt naked running so that they could look at men, athletically shaped men. And they would wrestle, Greco-Roman wrestling, all that stuff, butt naked. Would you look like butt naked wrestling another man, bro? That's what you do with your wife in the room. And she try to get a little rowdy with you, and y'all have y'all married people stuff. That ain't supposed to be dudes doing this, but this is pushed on us. This is pushed on us. And now this is pushed on us. What do we see now? We see the same thing, gladiator sports. What a football player pants need to be that tight for? What a baseball player pants need to be that tight for? What a wrestler got to have a bikini, a romper on? This dude is wrestling with a romper on, bruh. UFC, same thing, bro. I can fight just as good with my jeans on that I can with some underwear. Matter of fact, I'm not going to be fight as good with underwear because I'm afraid there's going to be some leakage. Something going to pop out. But this is their culture, and they pushed it on us, and we grew up in this. And, you know, I'm a victim of the same thing. I played football and basketball, all those things, and it was cool to smack another man on his behind. It was cool in football. If I walk down the street, a person smacked me in my behind, we going to fight. But it was okay because the coach was smacking me a good job and smacked me on my behind. That's their culture. That's not our culture. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Mitzrayim, Egypt, that he might have dominion over 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Mitzrayim. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death.
All right, Ptolemy. Ptolemy was another one that they try to give credit of him discovering all this knowledge and all this stuff. Man, you ain't do that. You got that from the Egyptians. You not Egyptian. But this is how you got the queen, what's the Cleopatra, and all these people white and all this stuff is because when the Greeks came in. And at some point, there were white people there. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yasharal and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the shewbread, and the pouring of vessels, and the vials and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in Yasharal in every place where there were, so that the princes and elders mourned. The virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of woman was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for in the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion.
All right, and so this is part of the same thing that we're in right now, where you have the young men were weakened, were feeble, and even the beauty of our women are changed. Our women are getting masculine because the man can't protect them. The man became feeble. He done been beaten down mentally. It wasn't that he wasn't strong. He was beaten down mentally, to the point where he acting like a woman. And this is why you have so much homosexuality and all this stuff going on. So this is what happened when we moved away from our laws. We got destroyed as a people. And now we're seeing this same thing because we're under the same rule right now. This rule hasn't ended. We're under the same rule. And you see that same confusion. Go ahead.
Verse 29. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judea, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spoke peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Yasharal. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein.
All right, so this is also how you get in some of these other nations of people in here prior to them shipping the Assyrians sending their people in, and then also the 1940s, what was it, 43? When they
became a nation?
When they came into, when they came in, was 43? What year? 1947, when they came in out from Europe. This is also how these other nations got into that region that's fighting over our land right now. Go ahead.
Verse 35. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Yasharal. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her.
So it became strange to the people that was born there. It became like where the people that are actually from the region are strangers. That's kind of like Miami. You trying to speak English in Miami, they looking at you like you crazy, bro. You don't speak Spanish. This is how Jerusalem was. Completely ran over by Gentiles. And this is what was prophesied. Go ahead.
Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Doesn't that sound familiar? We should all be one people. We're all going to be one people. So we're going to be treated the same? No. We all going to be one people, the same how people with these camps do. Yeah, let's all come together. All the camps, let's come together and we'll be one camp, but I'm going to be the leader. Go ahead.
Verse 42, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Yasharali consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
Let's all be one people. We all have one religion, but we're going to worship my God, the adversary of the devil. Go ahead.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judea, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people.
So they literally made it a law that you had to profane the Sabbath day, that you had to sacrifice swine's flesh and all these things that were complete abomination to us. Now, man is man, but where would this really be coming from? This is coming from the adversary of the devil. He's trying to enact death on the children of Yasharal. And he's going to use whatever nation of people he can do that to kill the nation of Yasharal. So this is part of the reason how our Sabbath day is now first day of the week, the Dies de Sol, the day of the sun, the Sunday. This is how all this stuff came about. They literally forced this on us. You had some people that did it for money. Yeah, let me do it. So I get some bread and live easier, and justified it by saying, well, my kids got to eat. Then you have other people where they literally killed people. And we're going to read some more of that. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 47, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrificed swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
And that didn't stop back then. They did this in other countries where Israel at. I don't know how it is there now. They're circumcising babies in Jamaica. They still not doing it. They stopped circumcision in Jamaica. I didn't get circumcised till I was 5 years old. 5 years old. Here, my younger brothers that were born here, they got circumcised. They did it off rip. But they went into them slave islands, all where those slave islands were that were inhabited by the Spanish conquerors and the English conquerors. And they went in and they stopped circumcision. All of this is being leaked all the way from this realm right here. Go ahead.
Verse 49, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judea to sacrifice city by city.
All right, so if this goes down in our time, what are we going to do when they challenge our lives? Now, everybody like to say, hey, I'll die. Everybody like to say that. Well, you can pray and hope that you have the strength to stand up and do the right thing in that time and be delivered. But this is a difficult situation, and according to these prophecies, all of this stuff is coming back. It's going to get to the point, and you can see it's already moving there. Look at these digital currencies just popping up all of a sudden now. Now, all of a sudden, oh, Bitcoin. Bitcoin been going on for years. Now people trading with gold, forgetting the dollar. They trying to move away from that, and they're going to get this, where they like to call the mark of the beast, a chip in your hand, where basically everything is going to be done on that. If they cut your chip off just like if they cut your internet off, you ain't going on the internet. You can't go pay your bill. You can't do nothing without no internet. So they do in that same situation. They want to get us in a position because they see the awakening, this net neutrality thing and all this stuff. We can't even barely stream on Facebook now. All this stuff is intentional, all moving us to that point where you're going to have to make that decision, whether you're going to fight or flight.
It would be interesting meeting to men and women by myself. You want to put it up. I said they give an interesting meeting to men that can I buy myself.
Mm-hmm.
If they, able to allow this Bitcoin to continue and people going into, the world of making money online.
Digital currency.
Digital currency. I mean, how easy is that to get rid of?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They can just miss it and it's gone. Just like putting your money in the bank. If they put a chip in your hand and you run your hand over a teller to buy merchandise, you know what I mean? How easy it's for them to take whatever you have credits out of the bank.
Right.
You have nothing. That's why one of the reasons why they had got rid of President Kennedy, because he put gold and silver threads through our monetary system. That way it's worth something. Because I know after they assassinated him, the next president picked up every dollar bill that Kennedy had put out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And gave other ones, but because that money is worth something. You got gold and silver thread in it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, our votes are really worth nothing.
Right.
It's just really worth nothing. So you got to think about that. Get with the Most High, because our monetary system should be destroyed, and how are you going to buy food and clean goods?
Right. And, it's just very similar to voice over IP. At first, when that was first coming out, they would say, oh, you want a landline. You don't want to be over voice over IP because the internet down, you're not going to be able to use the phone. Well, by the time they were saying that, half of everything was already on voice over IP. Just a little bit of it was going over copper. Well, it's the same thing with this digital currency. It's already digital. It's been digital. They trade in digits. What you think they trading on the stock market? They're not paying dollar bills to each other. This is just crap. It's a paper. It's like monopoly money. It don't mean nothing. So we're already digital. So they can't just come and say, move everything. No more trade, no more gold, nothing. They got to do it in steps. So they did that in steps. They got the federal bank system, central banking system. Once that was in place, it was already digital. They're already going into your trade account and executing your account as power of attorney and passing digits across the board, imaginary money across the board. And they give you a physical, a promise to pay a debt. That's what that is, a promise to pay a debt. It ain't worth nothing. But how is that a promise to pay a debt if I can't take that dollar bill and go to the bank and say, give me my money worth in gold? It's invisible. Right. It don't exist. So they've already got us to that system where it's already digital. Then the next step is, all right, we're not even playing games no more. We're getting rid of the currency, period. Now you don't even have proof that you had some kind of money at some given point. You have no proof. And then all somebody got to do is go on the master server. You're gone. You don't even exist. You never existed. So it's in place. And that's also why they passed the laws. You can't grow fruit trees. You can't plant your own food. You can't store water. Obama, the same president that was supposed to be our black messiah, he the one that passed the Anti-Hoarding Act. He passed the Terrorism Act. Those two are the most wicked law. Trump ain't even touched those laws that were passed in Obama's office. That's right. The Anti-Hoarding Act means you can't even keep stuff for your own family in case of an emergency. The government can come in here and distribute your stuff to whoever. That's wicked.
That's right.
And that whole administration from, we thought the Patriot Act was bad, where they can grab you and call you a terrorist. The Anti-Terrorist Act is even worse than that. How did you need to go above Patriot Act?
Thank you.
Now you can't even put money in the bank without everybody in the world knowing it.
That's the deal. They make laws for us, but they haven't made that laws for themselves.
Of course. Their stuff ain't here. Their stuff is where this place finna be destroyed. Their island is their money where it's finna be around.
England, Cayman Islands, stuff like
Look for you.
Switzerland.
You want to know what's going on? Follow the rich white people.
That's right.
The rich white people now, they leaving. They getting rid of their citizenship. They going back to their native lands. They like, nah, I'm good. Go ahead.
Verse 49. To the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judea to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law. And so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Yasharali into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor.
For secure. So they had to flee to be safe. So you have to learn when to fight. You in your land, you a stranger in your own land. You know that the prophecies tell you this is going to happen to you. You're going to be dispersed because y'all transgressed the law. You as an individual may not have been the one that went and did everything, but your nation did that. So you are part of your nation. So it means you going too. So all this happened and they had to choose to sit here and fight. When the enemy comes to oppress you in your land, Yahweh will fight for you. But when you in the land doing the same thing as your enemy, Yahweh not fighting for you. So they had to get up and they had to flee to the wilderness. That same thing is going to happen here. You can sit here like believing you're going to be like these white people. You're going to stack up a bunch of guns so that you can sit and secure your house. No, you're going to have to flee. You have to get up out of here. And Yahshua tells you in there, man, when it's time to go, you better go. Don't go back and grab nothing. Leave. There's a time to fight and there's a time to flight. And if you're not at one accord with this word and with the spirit, you're going to be sitting there fighting to your death. Go ahead, Elder.
Yeah, so on that same point, I think you also expound on what Yahshua was talking about. You know, when he was here, people didn't need a sword at the time because he was among us. You know, he teach this one set of laws and rules to govern our hearts, you know, and obey Yahweh. Also, you know, when he left, didn't he say, sell your coat and get a sword? You know, and that goes along with this because there will be a time, you know, that you're going to have to protect. You're going to have to fight. You cannot get along with every man. You know, even if you say you try, but you cannot get along with every man. So when it comes to it, you know, even Yeshua, because it wasn't his time, after he did his father's business, he also left the area. Because, you know, why should he get into a battlement with someone that, you know, is unworthy?
He's trying to kill him.
Yeah, he's trying to kill him. Why should he get in battlement for that? It's not his time. He did his job, his father's job. But when he comes back, he's going to have some serious blood. You understand?
That's right. You know, when he comes back, according to these scriptures, Old Testament and New, he's not coming here to hold people's hands. He coming here to do what a priest do, which is sacrifice. Blood sacrifices. And it takes the blood of the sinner to clean the land, to cleanse the land. Go ahead.
Verse 54. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judea on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire.
So this is why a lot of our stuff is gone. They burnt that stuff.
It's Germany. Burning books.
And wheresoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death.
So if you try to keep y'all's commandments, you had to be put to death. And many of our people, which we're going to read what they did, they rather have died. So we had our forefathers that their memories are still in our DNA that died to keep the commandments. Ain't nobody killing us to keep the commandments. We free to keep the commandments. We might lose some money, but what we do, we choose the flesh over the commandments. And our forefathers are crying in our bodies, in our own bodies, because your body feels it when you're not doing right. Because they have proven that DNA has memories. This is why some of these white people hate you so much. And on the flip side, this is why some of these white people love you so much. Because maybe they have forefathers that were specially chosen vessels that wanted to treat people with respect. And this is why they also pull this stuff out. They don't want you to know how wicked it is for you to transgress these laws that our people died to keep in their land.
Verse 58. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which is upon the altar of Yah. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. They hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them.
So when they played Roots in England with Jonathan's dad, they rioted and beat the crap out of white people in streets and movie theaters and all that stuff. When they did the same thing when they had the movie here, what was the other movie? Not Bird. This is like the 90s, where the guy went on the clock tower and he was shooting down black people. John Singleton's movie. When they did that,
Rosewood?
Nah. When they did that movie in Miami, same thing, beating up white people like crazy. OJ trial, beating up white people. What's his name? The guy beat up by the cops.
Rodney King.
Rodney King, beating up white people. So what you think? They knew how we were. They knew this is why the Greeks had to kill Yahshua, because we was about to go crazy. Because we were so ready to kill an innocent man. We were about to go crazy. So you can see why they pulled this stuff out. Because what you think we would do when we get in here, we already saw Roots and all this stuff and said, oh, this is why I don't know the Sabbath day. Because y'all were killing, y'all were hating. This is why I didn't care if I got circumcised. Because you killed a mother because she allowed her child to be circumcised and hung the baby by his neck. And when the baby hanging by his neck, everybody's seen the baby circumcised, and they know the law is you're not supposed to circumcise people, so the message is there. Circumcise your child, we gonna kill you and your baby. So what most mothers gonna do? I'm gonna protect that baby. I'm gonna protect that baby. Either protect the baby, Moses, same thing, put him in a little thing, and Yahweh, please be with him.
That's right.
Verse 61, and verse 62. Howbeit many in Yasharal were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died.
Expound on that, brother, because that is very important right there.
What they chose. They chose rather to die. They chose rather to, any of the commandments, they chose rather to die than transgress the commandments. That means there's a certain spirit on you. There's a certain love you have for the Most High where you love him and you love his son more than you love your own life. Because you know you're living this life to get into the next kingdom. So it's counterproductive to destroy the next kingdom with this life here. This whole purpose of this life is to get you into the next kingdom because one man screwed it up in the garden. So these people rather died. So you're not going to jump up from somebody that don't keep the commandments to somebody that's going to all of a sudden be ready to die to do righteousness. That ain't going to happen. Because you can't even fight lust of your flesh, much less I'm trying to keep the commandments. Now they're trying to keep me to kill the commandments. That's why things got to move in steps. Go to chapter 2. Of Maccabees. And these are hard things to read. We don't like to read stuff like this because we don't want to admit that this is what happened to us. We don't want to acknowledge that we're this way for a reason. We just want to feel like everything's okay and I'm not under curses. Y'all under curses. I'm not under curses. Everything is all great because I got a nice house and a nice car. Meanwhile, we killing our salvation and we're putting our children in the fire because we're passing these things down to our children. We didn't get it from ourselves. This was passed to us. 1 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 1.
In those days arose Mattathias, the son of Johanan, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Yorib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons, Johanan called Cadis, Simeon called Thasai, Yehudis, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Avran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apis. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judea and Jerusalem, he said, Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers? Her temple is become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy.
Hold on, brother. What verse are we in?
We're on verse 9. Going on verse 10. First Maccabees chapter 2.
There is one other participant.
And verse 10. What nation has not a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she is become a bond slave.
It says, what nation has not had a part in her kingdom and gotten her spoils? So it ain't just one group of people. It wasn't just white people. All these nations stood around and were happy to see our fall. Go ahead.
And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory, is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer? When Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore, in the meanwhile the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Yasharal came unto them, Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on this wise, You are a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore, come you first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Yehuda also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shall you and your house be in the number of the king's friends, and you and your children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards.
And this is what they do. When they see that you have a gift and you have a devoutness, and people, you have an ability for people to be strengthened by you to do the right thing, they don't just kill you at first. They try to bring you to them because they want to utilize that talent. They want to say, oh, you can be used. And we just watched Black Mirror, this show, with the guy from Get Out. And it was the same thing, the black guy from Get Out. He went in and he got, it's like they had this American Idol type show thing, whatever, where everybody was slaves, but he went and got into being, you know, where the American Idol type situation in the movie. And he got in so that he could try to make a point, and he talked to all the slaves like, look, man, don't you see what's going on? They got us as slaves. They give us just enough to get by, then they take it away to keep us in this messed up state. And he had the glass, he was gonna kill himself to make the point. And they turned it around on him. We like what you're saying. We want to hear that. We're gonna give you a show. And they gave the man a show, and they gave him a 30-minute segment. And at the end of the thing, he gets up there and he has the show and he's talking to the people, and they're like, yeah, talk, let him hear it. But they work for him now. And he in this big old mansion house and live. This is what they do. If they can't corrupt you, then they kill you. Yeah. They don't just kill you at first because they want to utilize you. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Then Mattathias answered and spoke with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from their religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. Yah forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left.
All right. And it's because of brothers and sisters like this is why we're sitting here to this day reading. Because somebody had enough love of the Most High in their nation to stand up to the powers that be. And obviously, all of them didn't die. Because if they all killed off, then we wouldn't have any of this information. So who in this generation is doing that? Who are the people in this generation that are refusing to transgress these laws and say, I'd rather die? I'd rather fight for this. Because now it's time to fight, because my children and my generations under me are dependent on this. Everything is digital now. If we don't have this and we don't pass it on, there ain't going to be no Bibles to read. There ain't going to be no information. There ain't going to be no understanding. Because they got the New International Version Bible. They done remove wholesale verses.
Sure did. They become like Jehovah's Witnesses now.
They've removed wholesale verses. You do that after a few years. We talking about it now. 10 years from now, we ain't even going to know.
No.
Verse 23. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Yehudim in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin according to the king's commandment. Which thing when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
All right, so, that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, because he's not the judge. You have to go before a trial, and you have to, you have to be brought up charges and this, that, you don't just go out and kill somebody. But this is what the zeal will do. When you have it says oppression causes what? A man to go mad. Mm-hmm. So this is what this oppression has done to us, where to the point where we run in theaters beating up white people, and that's not necessarily who we are as a people. We don't, all of us, some people are racist, but we don't all just hate somebody that's not from our nation. But when you oppress people, or you oppress an animal, he gonna fight back, period. So we got to be cognizant of that. And sometimes we're going to do things or say things that are outside of our character. But it's oppression that's causing us to have this kind of anger. And the thing is, y'all allow that to happen sometimes. You're like, all right, just like y'all allowed Moshe to kill the Egyptian. He didn't kill off Moshe because he knew where his heart was. It wasn't a racism. I hate Mizraim. He was in the palace of Mizraim. How are you going to hate these people?
Verse 25. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of Yah, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri the son of Salmon. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintains the covenant, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they had in the city.
All right. So when you take a stance like that, who wants to keep the commandments? You're going to have a few people going to follow you, if anything. That's how it works. Who wants to go party? And who wants to drink for free? Who wants to eat these pork chops? You're going to have a whole crowd of people. Who want to go up in the church and put a bunch of money in a plate and buy your forgiveness? You're going to have a whole bunch of people. Go ahead, brother.
First.
Would you expound on Phinehas? Maybe somebody know who Phinehas was with the javelin, I believe?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Expound on it.
Right quickly, if you might not know who Phinehas was. Phinehas was a brother who was very zealous for Yah. And another brother had a Moabitess woman, I believe she was, and they was doing an abomination, within the camp. So to stay a plague and stay a problem for Yahweh, Phinehas was very serious. He grabbed the javelin and when he cast it at him, it went through both of them at the same time, and they died and stayed plague to the camp. So sometimes, Yahweh will allow, our zealousness for his laws, to prevail, and make a very serious point to radiate to the masses in years to come to realize don't mess with God or his laws and govern yourself correctly. And if people will think about, well, hey, what about that guy who, when it tried to stop the ark from falling over, when the brothers Levi's were carrying the stage, well, the order was not to touch the ark unless you're a Levite priest, because they are the ones that are ordained to handle holy things. Well, even though in his zealousness, not to allow the ark to fall when he thought the ark was going to fall, when he touched it, he died immediately. So let everybody understand, There's some things for you to do, and there's some things you're not supposed to do. No matter what road you're trying to travel on, with your zealousness, not all things accepted by Yah. So, we have to govern ourselves correctly by the Father. And this brother here happened to govern himself where, he just couldn't handle it anymore, because of disobedience and disrespect, toward Yah, and his people. So, he handled that business, and yet, he didn't die from it that we can see, but yet he was allowed to have that level of jealousy, have that zeal toward Yahweh at that time.
Right.
Verse 28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they ever had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they encamped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, let that which you have done hereto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and you shall live. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, let us die all in our innocency. Heaven and earth shall testify for us that you put us to death wrongfully.
All right, so these brothers and sisters chose to die rather than to profane the Sabbath day in, fighting and not proclaiming peace on the Sabbath day. And that was a sacrifice of innocent people. A sacrifice of innocent people. And you see how the adversary, the devil, works. He likes the bloodshed of innocent people. Period. Whereas the Yahweh Elohim says, no, the wicked people, the sinner's blood is going to be the one he's going to pay for it. Just like you thought, our law says you thought to put somebody to death what was innocent, that didn't do anything, because you don't like the person. Guess what? When we find out, you're going to be put to death. So these brothers are special vessels chosen for these. These are sacrifices chosen, because ain't too many people going to have an opportunity to fight for their lives and just going to sit there and just die to make a point. That's a special vessel right there. You have to be chosen for that. You are a martyr, just like Stephen. You are chosen for that. There's a certain type of spirit on you to do that.
And you are underneath the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that because you are a special type of vessel to make that decision and not raise up your hand because you let Yahweh fight that battle, yes, they might have died that day. Because their faith in the Most High, these pages are written so we can see, and develop a level of our faith, because these brothers, died with their families, believing in Yahweh. So these brothers and sisters are trying to become martyrs, and I believe they're there under the altar of Yahweh, waiting until Yahweh, says, okay, now it's time, to be with your brothers and sisters. We still have brothers and sisters right now, your brothers and sisters who need to go follow that path. So he gave them white garments, in preparation, that it's going to be a little while longer. You understand? Comforting. It's going to be a little while longer, and I'm redeeming you, because of what your sacrifices were.
Right. And you have in Revelation chapter 20 where it talks about those that were beheaded for Christ.
That's right.
And again, people say, well, what about all those people before Christ was here in the flesh? Well, first of all, you got to understand who Christ was. He's the Word. He's the Word. He was just the Word in flesh. And when you're talking about beheaded for Christ, you're talking about all the people that were removed from the body. When you're beheaded, you're removed from the body. Removed from the body, lost your life for this Word, for righteousness. Those are the people they're talking about. Not just the people that died, like Stephen after the Mashiach was here. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 38. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath and slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people. Wow. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to the other, If we do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth.
So there's a time to fight and a time to flee. If your nation gonna be wiped out, you gotta fight. Period. Because the nation's already being wiped out with the people that are staying in the land that are deciding, well, we just gonna turn into Gentiles. Eventually, the results of that you're gonna bring death that way too, because you're gonna die for transgressing these laws. And then now if you go out in the wilderness because you want to keep the laws, and then you let these heathens kill you, then you're gonna die too. So somebody got to stand up and fight and carry this torch. Who is fighting in this generation? Now, the fight in this generation is not time to grab guns and go out there and try to shoot people. That's not the time. What you're going to do is make sure your bloodline don't continue. But you got to fight in the fight that the fight is now is fighting in the flesh, allowing yourself to take that internal fight and get a hold of your own temple. When it talks about the saints shall take the kingdom, that is talking about physically taking the kingdom. But before we can physically take a kingdom, we got to take Jerusalem back, which is the people. We have to take our own temples back and take control of that temple. Say, this belongs to Yah. I'm fighting off any evil spirits that's trying to come against that. And once we have that together, now Yah can go fight for us. Now we can go back in our land and take our land. But what folks want to do, they figure we're going to flee captivity, we're going to run to Jerusalem, and everything is going to be okay. You haven't taken your kingdom back. And you, as part, even if you took yourself back, what about the rest of the building blocks? Yeah. What happens if you have a building like this, and this whole side is built up, the other side is destructed? It's going to fall right over. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 41. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, Whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places.
So I'm going to proclaim peace to you on the Sabbath day. First, peace. You try to kill me or my family, there ain't going to be no peace. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Then came there unto him a testimony of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Yasharal, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law.
Assyrians, those are like law keepers, those devout people. They call them Assidic Jews or whatever. Those are supposed to be the so-called Jews that actually keep the commandments. That wear all black because they supposedly mourning. What you mourning for? What are you mourning about? You go into a wailing wall, you weeping for Tammuz. That's what you're doing. Ain't got nothing to do. Your people fine. Your people own a banking system. What you mourning about? Go ahead.
Verse 43. Also all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for succor.
And that's what we do. We flee to the heathen for security. Help us, master. Go ahead.
Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. And what children soever they found within the coast of Yasharal uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hands. So they recovered the law out of the hands of the Gentiles and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. Now when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his sons, Now has pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be you zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers.
All right. So we'll stop right there. So, my sons, be you zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. That is the same calling we have right now, is to give our lives. But Yahshua is not asking us to die in the flesh right now. If that is your specific calling, because we all have individual callings, and that you got to be ready to do that. But he's telling you to give up your life for this law, as far as I have the right to do whatever I want. I don't got to be here on the Sabbath day. I could be at the mall right now, buying a sale or whatever. Or I could be, doing whatever, eating a pork chop. I can do that. And nobody going to kill me. So I'm giving my life to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm giving up that life. I'm giving up the flesh of control and I'm allowing my spirit to control. So where he's asking us to give up our life, he's asking us to do that in the living, to live as an example. He's the Elohim of the living. What he want with our dead body? He wants us to live. One of the first commandments, be fruitful, multiply. He wants us to live. So for us to live, that spiritual life he wants us to live. And that's going to determine the difference between fight or flight. Which one is going to give you that spiritual life? To fight right now is going to give me my spiritual life because I'm fighting for righteousness? Or am I fleeing so I can secure my salvation? So I can continue the job that I need to do, so I can protect my family, so I can live to fight another day. Like Yeshua got up and gone when they was trying to kill him. Even Yeshua had to know when to flee. Even Saul had to be let down on a little rope and stuff to get him up out of there. Even Yeshua had to hide in a prostitute house. Yeshua, the son of Nun. So we have to know this. And the only way, just like anything else in our lives, to guide us on how we need to do is these commandments. So that's all we're going to do today. Any last questions or comments before we close in prayer? All right. Let's go ahead and end in prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings, and all sisters pray with their heads covered. And, you know, it was a while since we had a brother come on here and talk about, you know, you dishonoring your head because your head was covered. But they never around when we pray or we, you know, and supposedly prophesy or whatever, and we take our head covers off. Abba Father, Yahweh, Elohim, the Allah of Abraham, Yasha, Yaakov, Covenant Father, Elohim of Yahshua, we thank you, Yahweh, so much for allowing us a day out the week, Yahweh, where we can voluntarily move towards some peace, Yahweh. We thank you for giving us a covering, Yahweh, allowing us to have time to study, have time to come together and gather in peace. And throughout the week, we go through these battles and these wars, but you give us this day, Yahweh, where we can enjoy your rest, Yahweh. So we're thankful, for we know the sins that we have done throughout the week make us not worthy. But we understand, Yahweh, that if we continue this race and we endure, Yahweh, that through Yeshua's sacrifice, Yahweh, we could be made perfect, Yahweh, if we don't quit and don't fall down. So we ask you, Yahweh, and we ask this not only for us, but for all your children across the earth, our whole nation, and all those that seek to be joined unto you through your children, Yahshua. We ask that you give us the strength, Yahweh, to continue this fight. Give us the strength to know when it's time to fight and to have enough foresight to know when this is not our fight, Yahweh. We ask that you embolden us, Yahweh, to remove any kind of cowardice out of us, Yahweh. And also embolden us to know when we need to humble ourselves, Yahweh, and allow whatever punishment or tribulation that's in our lives to take its place, Yahweh. Yah, once again, we thank you, Yahweh, for always providing that little sanctuary, like you told us in Ezekiel, your prophet Ezekiel, that when we be spread across the four corners of the earth, that we can turn towards your holy temple, Jerusalem, as we do now, and pray to you, and we will be heard, Yahweh. So, Yah, all these things we humbly come before you with full acknowledgement that we are not worthy to speak to you, Yahweh, but it's through your Son, Yahweh, that we are made perfect. Our belief and our works through your Son, Yahweh, that our prayers can be heard. So we thank and we pray to you, Yahweh, directly to you through your holy, humble, anointed Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, in which all praise, majesty, might, and dominion resides here and forever. Through you, your majesty, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we thank you and pray. Amen. Amen.